Here's the thing about Melee. It was developed in 2001 to be played on TVs that look like this. And TVs that look like this, they're great. 60 FPS, virtually no input lag, surprisingly great color, and no motion blur. For one of the fastest games ever made, TVs that look like this are perfect. But unfortunately, there's one major issue with them. They're no longer being produced. While for now this might not seem like a big deal, everyone has that one relative who has a collection of these in their basement, CRT TVs are becoming more scarce, which is a big problem for the Smash Melee community because all major tournaments use them. So while we know that Melee will be played forever, what happens when we run out of TVs? And then go into like a little montage. CRT stands for cathode ray tube. It's a glass vacuum sealed tube with an electron gun in it. The gun shoots electrons at a phosphorescent screen, and thanks to some magical wizardry, an image appears. I won't get into the specifics because honestly I don't fully understand it myself, but suffice to say that CRT TVs are sophisticated and perfect for video games. The response time on a CRT is fast, virtually instantaneous, meaning whatever game you're playing feels absolutely responsive. So why did they fall out of favor? The main reason is their size. To pick up one of these bad boys, you'd better be able to squat at least 3 plates, or good luck hauling one to your local Smash Fest. Seriously, Sony's 40-inch Trinitron from 2002, one of the biggest consumer CRTs ever made, weighed over 300 pounds. So when LCD and plasma screens were first introduced on the market, their relative lightness and flatness seemed like they'd be the next step forward. But was the picture quality actually that good? While LCD screens were smaller, consumed less power, and weighed a heck of a lot less, the picture quality featured less vibrant colors and tons of motion blur at lower resolutions. Oh, and the response time was horrendous. While CRTs have a sub 1 millisecond response time, plasma screens at the high end had around 30 milliseconds, almost unplayable by modern standards. On the other hand, there are plasma screen TVs. They actually have really low input lag, and high-end plasma screens are actually pretty good for gaming. The big issue is they lack coloring and the screen degrades over time. Also, they're subject to glare like nothing else. So if you're not playing in a dark room, the picture tends to look terrible. On top of this, it's important to note that higher refresh rate doesn't actually equal faster response time. Plasma screen TVs tote a 600 Hz refresh rate, but that doesn't mean they're 10 times more responsive than CRT TVs. Mostly, it's just a marketing tool. Plasma screens create images differently than CRTs and LCDs, and the higher refresh rate doesn't actually mean all that much. Plasma screens are kind of like the successors to CRTs. They use similar phosphors that were used in CRTs to produce images, but do so in a much flatter space. While LCDs and plasma screens are pretty good, they aren't quite good enough to replace CRTs. But for most, the new technology was good enough, despite actually not being that good at all. And the inferior picture quality didn't stop the flat screen revolution. In 2008, Sony shut down their production of CRT televisions, signaling the end of an era. Which brings us to the Melee community. Nearly a century of CRT production means that there's a seemingly inexhaustible surplus of extra televisions for Smash tournaments. But CRTs do break. As the phosphors in the tubes break down, the color quality degrades. They get thrown out and recycled by parents who don't know their true value, and every year, the world has fewer and fewer of these gentle giants. So objectively speaking, Smash and its tournaments cannot always look like this. Thankfully, we have something called Emulation, where we've essentially ported the game onto a virtual console called Dolphin that runs on your computer. So now, you can run your favorite game on your computer, and we also have Slippy, which reverse engineered the entire game to implement rollback netcode and matchmaking so you can play online at any time, and it feels like you're sitting next to your opponent. TLDR, Dolphin makes Melee better in like every way imaginable. So, for most people at home who are getting ready for a tournament, you have 2 options. You can transfer mods like 20XX and Uncle Punch onto a Wii so you can practice tech skill on your CRT, or you can just use Dolphin on your computer to do the same thing, with the added benefit that you can play online against other top competitors. I'll let you guess which one most pros prefer. The cherry on top is that with just a click of a few buttons, Melee goes from looking like this, to this, and then to this, and suddenly it feels like you're playing a proper AAA title. With so many advances in technology, it seems like Melee players could theoretically make the jump from CRTs to monitors and have no issues. Which is what happened in 2022. One of the biggest tournaments of the year, Pound, announced that it would be going fully digital, at least for one day. The backlash from the Melee community was so unanimous that less than 24 hours after their announcement, Pound rescinded their decision. Melee players, especially in tournament settings, are ruthless about this kind of thing. Many argue that the analog setups of TV and consoles are less prone to technical issues like the computer freezing mid-match. Some are worried about the legal implications of running tournaments using an emulated, pirated, version of the game, and the rest of players simply feel like CRT Melee feels better than monitor Melee. But is there actually any difference? Let's look at the facts. Recent advancements in technologies like OLED screens have gotten response times down to around 1 millisecond, comparable to that of CRTs. There are 2K, 4K, and even 8K screens with absurdly clear picture quality and cheetah-fast response times. And the big issue with LCD screens, motion blur, has been all but eradicated. So here's the question. Can emulated Melee feel as good as CRT? The short answer? Absolutely yes. And you don't need all that much to do it.
Hey, you're fixing to four-stock that guy.
So let's give a quick rundown of what you'll need. If you want more in-depth instructions, head over to blippy.gg for a step-by-step process. First off, get a high refresh rate monitor. 100 or 144 Hz is enough. Also, get a responsive monitor.
Okay.
1 millisecond or less is ideal. Once you have your high-end gaming OLED curved 4K widescreen command center connected to your PC, make sure you enable the higher refresh rate so you're actually using it to its fullest potential. The next thing is to ensure that all inputs are read properly. And to do that, we're going to overclock our GameCube controller adapter to increase the polling rate. Artie made a great guide scene here, which you can also find on Blippy. Last is to make sure that all of your graphic settings in Dolphin are good to go. This is where you can enable your widescreen hacks and Weeboo mods to ensure the optimal gaming experience. And just like that, you're done. Melee will now feel just as good as it ever did on a CRT. Seriously, you can stop the video right now and go play Melee if you want to. Still here? Okay, fine. If Melee is so easy to set up on monitors, why don't big tournaments use them? The easy answer is that we've been getting along fine without them so far, and there's no real reason to change yet. Major tournament organizers have stockpiles of CRTs, and companies like Gaming Generations lend their services to any tournament organizers who don't have a stockpile. But over the next, say, 100 years of playing Melee, things will eventually start to change. And thankfully, some tournaments are staying ahead of the curve. The Nightclub in New York City, one of the biggest in-person weekly events in the world, uses monitor setups, and there's been pretty much no complaints from anyone who's attended those events. LTC recently ran a tournament using CRT monitors, which feels like a good stepping stone towards going fully digital. On top of this, tons of online tournaments are held every week, attracting the most talented Melee players in the world. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. So where do we go from here? For players who want to practice, playing on your computer on an OLED monitor is tantamount to sitting down with a friend and playing on a CRT. The only difference is you can connect with anyone, anywhere, at any time, making emulated Melee an amazing tool for anyone who wants to get good at this game. While we might not see any major tournaments making the switch soon, it's good to know that long after the last CRT TV has burnt out, we'll still be playing Melee no matter what. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to B, Cloud, Pass, Shampoo, Spartacus, and Yashichi for being Platinum supporters. And an extra special shout out to Steph and Jack for being our Diamond supporters. We appreciate you and all the support you've given us. If you want to talk to us, check out our Discord. If you want to support our channel and get info on unreleased videos, check out our Patreon. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah. Thanks for watching.